Recording. Shall we?
Let's shall.
Okay. Welcome to Chit Chats, a totally unedited space where we break the cycle of what it means to be a woman together. So, should we talk about what we're going to talk about today?
We should.
Okay.
And it's kind of a tough one, and I think many of you have probably gone through this.
Probably.
It's a breakup, but not just any breakup. It's a toxic friend breakup.
Yeah.
And just toxic friends in general.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be a toxic friend breakup. It could just be a friend breakup because it's just the idea that you are ever changing and evolving as a human. So I know how I kind of want to start the conversation off was something that I learned when I was in grad school. So you have friends for a reason, a season, and a lifetime. And I had never heard that before, and it kind of blew my mind. So for me, that's where I want to start this off because I was like, what? My mind was blown about this idea of not having friends for forever. Because I think when you're young, right, you're like, I'm going to have like 500 friends and that means that I'm popular and I'm super cool because people like me and I need to be liked.
Well, side note, when I was younger, I very vividly and distinctly remember saying, words are hard sometimes, remember saying that I was like, everyone I ever meet is going to like me. I'm going to make sure everyone I ever meet likes me.
People pleaser.
Which is like such an unattainable thing.
Yeah.
Don't do that. If you find yourself sometimes doing that, get out of that habit. That's people pleasing and that will only stress you out in the end. Don't do it. Set boundaries, learn what yours are, learn what your values are. Yeah. I'm in therapy. I love it. It's my favorite thing in the world. And I feel like I'm constantly saying, I'm like, therapy. Let's talk about what you learn about boundaries in therapy. So
no, I think it's super important, but you know, and then I think as you grow older, you start to kind of whittle down your friends. You still have a lot, like in high school, I had a lot of friends. And then you go to college and you kind of find the people, right, that you want to surround yourself with. And then you get out of college and this thing happens where you're an adult now, I say in quotation marks, and you kind of are able to pick and choose a bit more closely. So for me, when I was growing up, because I am such a submissive person by nature usually, unless it's something that I disagree with and that I am dominant, but in most points, I am pretty submissive. So when I was growing up, I would have a lot of girlfriends that would come over the house, and my dad was really, really good about watching how we played together. Because I was so submissive, I ended up usually attracting dominant friends, and usually friends that ended up being bullies. Like a lot of these girls were very mean. So my dad would watch us play, see that these girls were being kind of domineering, right? And he would let us continue our play date. And then once they left, he would come to me and say, you are no longer allowed to see that person. And that happened throughout my childhood. I brought a lot of bullies home. And yeah, it was just, I really thank my dad for that because as a young child, I didn't really understand the dynamic of having that dominant force being so dominant that it overtook me and my opinions. So I'm really thankful because I think it really helped me kind of figure that out. Of course, it took me a long time.
Well, when you're a people pleaser and you are naturally a more submissive person, those two things kind of go hand in hand. So I think that's pretty common when you talk to people who are more like you and I used to be. That often the narrative is, I thought they were my friend, but X, Y, and Z, they turned out to be bullies. They turned out to be way too domineering. Interesting enough, how do you feel about this one? You teach people the way
you wish to be treated. I love it. I think that's such a crucial point. And I think a lot of what, and correct me if I'm wrong, but
You're wrong. No.
Yeah. It's happened before. But I know, crazy, right? That I'm wrong. It happens. I am not perfect. But anyway, for me, I think evolving into this person, into this Emily, this version of myself, I'm the most confident that I am in myself, even than I was if you asked me 2 or 3 years ago, like at the wedding, right? I had so many bridesmaids. I think I had like 9. And I probably could whittle those down even further, not to like offend any of my bridesmaids that, you know, were there, but it's just, I don't feel the need to be like friends with everyone. I have a lot of really good acquaintances, I would say, but like I can count my friends on one hand, like less than one hand. You know, like, so for me, like the biggest part of evolving into this place where I am now and being the person and the most confident that I am about myself and self-assured, it really was letting go of the people that weren't growing. And I hate to say that because people do it all the time, right? They just don't grow. They put themselves in a box and they never grow out of that box.
And I don't know if it's necessarily, it's like other people aren't growing. Look at it from the perspective of I'm growing beyond
this.
Where this is no longer something in my life that I value.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we forget is that I'll use a story that I have. There was a girl that I was friends with, and we were friends for a really long time. And we had a friend breakup in high school, and then we got back together. But I always felt like she was there for me through a lot of really hard things. But I also kind of felt like I was being used in a way. And I think in a small way emotionally as well. And it felt like every time we talked, her life was totally in chaos. Every single time. And I used to kind of play along with it. And where I think as a friend I could have been better is to sit down with her and be like, hey, I see these really destructive behaviors and I can't get on board with them. And you need to clean this stuff up because
clean out the hard drive, baby.
There's no way that your life can be in shambles all the time. Like, I know people deal with hardships, but it just felt like I came from a different background, and so it felt like every time I had something to say, I couldn't really be truthful about it because I didn't have the backing of living a tougher life. So I think what's hard is realizing when it's time to just gracefully bow out. And I mean, I knew our friendship was over when I stopped getting phone calls and text messages. There was no happy birthday. And that was the biggest one, is my birthday rolled around and she didn't wish me a happy birthday, and she's like the first one every year. So I was like, yeah, I think she's done. And I could have called and been like, hey, what gives? But I felt like I had been doing enough to that point. And she could have a different view. I could be the villain in her story.
And that's the beauty of it, right? Is that you could be the villain in somebody else's story, right? Even though you're the hero in your own.
Right. So I don't speak down about her. I know that she's got to go through what she has to go through. I wish her the very, very best of luck in life. But sometimes you have to take a step back, and at that point in my life, I just was starting to shift emotionally, and I felt like I couldn't be stepped on anymore, and I was starting to set boundaries because I was always a very like, haha, I'll be the butt of everyone's joke, and Stephanie's a pushover, and now I'll just tell you, this is how I feel. We can either speak like adults or
push it under the rug.
Or push under the rug, and if that's the case, then I can't be in your life because that's not how I function.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes when you break up, it's not necessarily like, oh, well, that person was so awful and toxic, and sometimes you just realize you're two different people, and maybe where you were before isn't where you are now.
I mean,
something has to give.
Yeah. I mean, for me, for my friend breakup, my biggest one was with the girls that I had met in college. I was a very different person back then. I'm still part of that person because it's my blood, it's my makeup, but I feel like I'm a very different person than even I was in college. But when I was in college, I met these girls. We became fast friends, all of us, and I took over the role of nurturer, which I usually do in most of my relationships, but it became to the point where they called me mom, which is great. I called them daughters. And, you know, if they drank, I would take care of them. If they called and they were at a party, I would pick them up. Like, I was the DD always.
Oh, same.
Yeah. So, like, you know, if they had a man in their room and they didn't want him in there anymore, I was the one that was coming in and saying, get out of my house. That was me. That was my role. If they were drunk the next morning, oh my gosh, I made cheesy eggs, which they loved.
That's a lot of pressure to put on one friend.
On a 20-year-old, it was huge.
Well, just in general, too. How many times have you been out with friends and they get absolutely Alabama slammered? And you're like, dude, I cannot. And I've had a few experiences that have been fun, but I've had some where, like, I saw my friends in a light that I was like, whoa, you have got to address this. This is not appropriate behavior for someone, first of all, of your age, your standing, your career, your, like, what is deeper happening that you have to be so, I don't know, balls to the walls, I guess.
Yeah.
So
I had similar situations.
And it's a lot of pressure. And then when you finally snap and you're like, I can't do this, they're like, well, what? You know, I can only get so many I'm sorry's after somebody gets really effed up.
Yeah.
And then they lean on you before you set a boundary and you say, look, I am not condoning this anymore. You can find another way. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think a lot of times people who are in the DD position get demonized a lot for not helping. Like, I'll call you an Uber, but I'm physically not going to pick you up anymore. Like, you have got to figure this out on your own. And you do. You kind of set an ultimatum to be like, I love you, but I'm emotionally being drained.
Yeah.
And you're not learning lessons. So
I mean,
this is not my responsibility. It's yours.
Yeah, but even in college, that's, 10 years ago now, I didn't know about setting boundaries. This isn't something
I didn't even know
like,
what it was. I was like,
this wasn't in the culture back then. So
No.
like, I had no idea.
you were a good friend.
Yeah.
You just said yes.
Yeah,
You do,
exactly.
do.
Anything you want.
That's
sure,
my
you got it,
position in the
girls.
group.
Yes, exactly. And it's like, you're talking about getting effed up, right? And like, these girls would go out and they would party all the time. Totally not my vibe. I would go for maybe like them to drink one, and then one time we went out and I almost got punched in the face by one of the girls who was way too drunk and like went to go attack me for absolutely no reason. And I went, I'm done, and I left and I walked home and I went home by myself, which would usually be the case. And it's, when I look back now and I think about all the things that were not so great in that friendship, like, they really did take advantage of me. I was the one that found our house senior year, but what happened? I got the smallest room in that house. They all decided that they would get the bigger rooms and I would get the smallest room, even though I did the legwork to find the house itself.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second.
Oh, do it.
Did you tell them?
No,
I want the
Well, that's
the
what
bigger.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
right? Is that at that time I didn't know.
So you feel like they were preying on the fact that, oh, Emily's not going to say anything
Exactly.
to us.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I'm not saying that I was in the right by
Oh,
any
no,
means,
no.
or that they were in the right.
But
It's
that's
just,
that's the unfortunate part of those friendships, right? When we talk about this is pretty much what this episode is when you realize you're a certain way and you realize somebody else is this way and you finally click into that, you also have to ask, am I willing to let this person bring this side out of me?
Yeah.
Because I don't feel comfortable standing up to them. And that's not my fault, but I'm trying to explain it in a way that it makes sense in my mind.
Yeah,
but
I
like,
totally get it.
it's like you're bringing out a part of me that I don't like. And so that's where you kind of have to weigh that. Like, I've hung out with people before who I have a tendency to overindulge with drinking sometimes. As of this episode, I'm 5 months sober, which is awesome. But I used to, 1 drink, 2 drink, and if I was with the right person who wanted to get really screwed up and like party, and I was in it to win it.
Yeah.
And then I was sick the next day, and I was never like aggressive as a drunk. I would just laugh, and I'd get to a certain point where I needed to be taken home and taken care of. And I think I've maybe had like 1 or 2 people in my life that have really taken care of me when I've been super messed up. So but it's hard, because if you know that can be brought out of you in certain situations with certain people, you have to ask yourself, do I want to surround myself with this person if they're not going to at least understand where I'm coming from? Like, I can only hang to a certain point with you, and then I gotta go once, if you want to keep partying, that's on you. No shame in the game, but I can't stay around it because I'm not comfortable anymore, and I need to be comfortable, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, so, that was in college, and then once we left college, I went straight to grad school, and they continued to be in that mindset of college, right? We had just graduated, but I was back in school somewhere else in Florida. They were all in New York, and they were constantly texting me. But realize that grad school is a lot of work. No matter what major you are in, you are basically there 24/7. And I was busy all the time. So
your priorities started to shift.
To change. So I would come home and I would have 150 text messages that I had to read up on. And I was like, oh my God, this is like having another textbook to read. I can't do this anymore. So I just stopped responding. And so they stopped reaching out. So then the friendship kind of started to fade, and they had a lot of resentment towards me because I was no longer playing the role that they wanted me to, but I was no longer in that place anymore to play that role. I was changing, I was growing, I was evolving. I wasn't staying in college. I was moving forward in my life. Yeah. So now I don't follow them on any socials. I really don't know what's going on in their lives, and it's not because I don't have love for them. Like, I think back to college and I think about our times together. Yeah. But I am no longer willing to play that role.
Yeah. And too, I think that kind of goes to the values part. As your values start to shift, you start to see, oh, I don't know that this person really cared about me for the reasons that I thought. Because I had a friend who, another one, every time we went out drinking, martinis, cocktails, we were gonna, just live the high life. And I just decided I'm gonna try to be sober and see if I still enjoy her presence. And then I started to pick up on the fact that she really only talked about herself and her career and what she was doing. And very rarely was she asking me about what I was doing. Yeah. Then the pandemic hit, and she would call me, but I noticed that she would, again, call me to only talk about herself. And then a couple other things happened. She said some things that didn't align with my values. And I was like, I cannot be friends with this person because we're on two different pages. I thought we were on the same page, but I think that she was a good time friend, not a deep, long time friend. Yeah. And so I gracefully bowed out of that. Yeah. AKA I just took her off my social medias because I didn't want to see it anymore. And I was like, I'm done and I'm allowed to make this decision. That's something else I want to talk about. Taking people off social media or unfollowing them. Why is that so taboo? I feel like social media is so
the more friends you have, the better it's.
I mean, if something's making you miserable and you're seeing it all the time, then unfollow. I mean, if you don't want to delete somebody, unfollow them. I've done that for exes.
You can mute. Apparently, I didn't know that you could do that. Yeah.
I've unfollowed exes, and then when I felt, the strength enough, I've deleted them and blocked them because I'm just. It's like if I'm bringing up things that negatively affected me, and they're physically making me feel ill, why on earth? I don't need to check in and see what you're doing. I don't really care. Wish you the best of luck or whatever religion. I don't know. I just do the sign of the cross thing because
Catholic upbringing.
But it's wish you the best of luck. But I don't need to see your BS. Yeah. I just don't. It's not making me feel good. Well, it's not. This is my space.
Yeah. I mean, I think the whole point of the conversation is then to go back into the circle and start where we're going to end now, is saying that you have friends for a reason, a season, and a lifetime, right? So people are going to come into your life and they're going to present whatever reason it may be that they are there to move you forward in whatever way. Then you're going to have friends for a few seasons. Maybe you'll be friends for a year or two and then
work friends.
Forward. Yeah.
I notice that tends to be something is the season is mostly work friends. If you're in theater, show friends.
Yeah, show friends. And then you move forward and you find these lifetime friends, these, I don't believe in soulmates because I think it's ridiculous, but we could talk about that on another episode.
Which we will.
Yeah,
so
we'll definitely
tuned.
do. But I do believe that like Stephanie and my soul were definitely connected at some point in a previous lifetime, and my husband and I as well, because you just feel these connections with these people that are wanting to grow with you. And something that I say to Stephanie all the time is that you either grow together or you grow apart.
Yeah.
And that is totally okay. There is absolutely nothing wrong with friend breakups, with breakups in general. You need to move forward to be the best version of you. And I think that's what I wanted to make sure that people understood out of this episode. You don't have to think about the people in the past. Just continue to move forward to be the best version of you. And if that friend is holding you back and making you feel bad, or that person, whomever they are, it's okay to let them go.
Yeah, or at the very least, reevaluate what that friendship is actually doing for you and that person.
Yeah, because it can negatively affect them too. Who knows? So that's kind of what I wanted to put my 2 cents into this conversation.
I think it's beautiful. I think that's a great way to end. And I think you guys should like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell somewhere in this area. Down there, up there. But hit the notification bell so that you get notified every single time we upload a new video. And if you're craving more content, we've got a full-blown podcast with other very educated guests in their chosen field. And you can find us on all podcast streaming platforms for the most part under Cycle Chats. And we'll go ahead and put the links below if you want to check out our website. It is www.cyclechats.com. And we have an awesome little website with our Cycle Cats community and a blog where we go a little bit more in depth on topics that we feel passionate about. So with that, we thank you and we hope you sync up with us next time.
Bye.